In the early 1990s, many events occurred that changed world history throughout the entire globe. For example, the Bosnian War, which created criticism on the United Nations and its interference with human rights, created a grave mistake in human history as millions of people died during the Rwandan genocide with little help from the Western powers and the United Nations. Hotel Rwanda is a movie that depicts the violence and mass killing of thousands during the Rwandan genocide. The movie was based off the personal memoirs of Paul Rusesabagina, who was played by Don Cheadle in the film. Paul was a hotel manager of the Hotel Miles Colinas, which provided a safe refuge for more than 1,000 refugees. The movie, which depicted the hate and violence towards the Tutsi population, showed the act of heroism and selflessness of Paul as he protected the refugees in his hotel and eventually helped them escape into a safe refugee camp. To understand the movie and its impact, first you need to understand the context of the Tutsi and Hutu tension. After World War II, Belgium gained control of the former German colony as a mandate. During Rwanda's history as a European colony, different class systems were created among natives, separating them into three classes: the Tutsis, Hutus, and a small pygmy group called the Twa. The Tutsi was a minority, making up only for 14% of the population, while the Hutus made up 85% of the population, and the Twa made up 1. While these class distinctions separated Rwanda, both the Hutus and Tutsis still spoke the same language and practiced the same traditions. Both the Germans and Belgians favored the Tutsis, believing that they were superior, and implemented them into roles of power over the Hutus. The Belgians even had identity cards that distinguished Tutsis from Hutus. The favoritism of Tutsis by the Belgians created political and cultural tension and a division between the Hutus and Tutsis. Eventually, Hutu forces rebelled against the Belgian and Tutsi elites, forcing 15,000 Tutsis to flee into neighboring countries, while about 20,000 were killed. Hutu forces eventually gained independence from Belgium, placing Gregor Kayibana, a Hutu, into presidency. More Tutsis fled Rwanda as they were being used as scapegoats for attacks on the Hutu government by exiled Tutsis. However, during the late 1980s and the early 1990s, civil war sparked. The RPF, or Rwandan Patriotic Front, which was made out of exiled Tutsis, attacked Rwanda. The government and the media responded through hate and violence, as all, if not most, Tutsis were labeled as part of the RPF or traitors. Eventually, a peace treaty between the president and the rebel forces were decided upon. However, the plane the president was in crashed, killing everyone on board and any hope for peace at that time. Hotel Rwanda's story begins during this pivotal point for Rwanda. It showcases the crash of the president's plane and how the radio slurred the Tutsis as cockroaches and traitors, calling for bloodshed upon the minority and beginning the Rwandan genocide. The mass killing of the Tutsis were sponsored by the government military in cooperation with the Interahamwe, a group of Hutu extremists. The Interahamwe's goal was to wipe out the Tutsi population in Rwanda, calling them cockroaches of Rwanda, eventually killing thousands of lives and displacing many more. Hotel Rwanda was released in 2004, the 10th year anniversary of the tragic event and a year after the Darfur genocide. While it was a movie to commemorate the lives taken by the Rwandan genocide, it was also a commentary on genocide as a whole and its coverage in the West. A year prior to the release of Hotel Rwanda, the Darfur genocide in Sudan had occurred, which also did not have as much news coverage and was overly simplified. This influenced how the media was represented in the film as powerless and ignorant of events occurring in Rwanda. The film was a commentary to how the media covered Darfur, the Darfur genocide, and was often shown during Hotel Rwanda through the reporters. It showed how the media and the United Nations responded towards the Rwandan genocide. They ignored it. The movie was not only meant to show how the genocide was badly dealt by Western powers, but also how it could have been dealt with. Even news outlets that did cover the genocide had no lasting impact. Even today, many students don't know about the occurrence of genocides in modern day, such as the Rohingya. Hotel Rwanda was not meant to shame Western powers, but to spread awareness of the occurrence of genocides around the world. It particularly influenced younger audiences. While the film and genocide contained very graphic scenes, it was still rated PG-13. The directed towards a younger audience, such as teens and young adults. The movie helps spread awareness of the occurrence of genocides in the younger generation, a generation that would hopefully deal with genocides differently. A massive majority of the younger generations don't know much about genocides except for the Holocaust, not even those that happened during their lifetime. During the release of the movie, the Darfur genocide, and today, the Rohingya. Throughout the movie, we see the Rwandan genocide through the lens of Paul, a middle-class Hutu with a Tutsi wife and children. Since Hutu Rwanda was majorly based off Paul's views, we see him and the RPF portrayed as heroes and the Hutu forces as evil. Although the Hutus who persecuted the Tutsis are unquestionably inhumane and evil, we do not see the perspective of a Tutsi refugee fleeing from the violence and persecution from the RPF. In the last scene of the movie, it is shown that the RPF is shooting at Hutu soldiers as well as innocent civilians trying to flee. The RPF is portrayed as good, yet they continue to kill innocent civilians similarly to the Hutus. Both sides have their wrongs, but it was portrayed very differently in the film. The RPF is celebrated as they continue to gain momentum in the film, but it is not shown that they are killing and displacing thousands of citizens as well. In addition, the time frame represented in the movie was incredibly shortened compared to what occurred. The Rwandan genocide occurred during the span of 100 days, but the film was portrayed it as a few weeks. It created the idea that after Paul and his family leave for the buses, the genocide had ended as well. The film itself was very emotional and shocking, purposely intended to leave a mark on its viewers. The purpose was not only to tell the story of Paul, but to inform the readers on how the Rwandan genocide was dealt, but also how it could have been dealt with. The movie showed how the UN vastly ignored the country, leaving Tutsi and refugees to fend for themselves. However, Hotel Rwanda does not try to shame the United Nations, but instead tries to create change.